Hello and welcome to Books Corner on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. And with me, Nitin Gokhale, our editor-in-chief. And I also have with me Nitin's latest book, a book on Parrikar, the late former defense minister. Now, Nitin, let me get straight to the point.
Yeah.
This is not a man you knew very much about or knew very well for that matter, Yet you come out with the book.
Yeah, I know it's a long story, but just to tell you in short, or to tell our viewers in short, I didn't know him until January 2015. I knew about him, obviously, first IITian Chief Minister, honest, very down to earth and straightforward. And he had made Goa into a state, progressive state, and all that I had heard. But when he became defense minister in November 2014, I had by then left my regular reporting days back, behind me. And I was not very much interested. But one day, out of the blue, he called and he said, I want to meet you. So I said, well, I'm not in Delhi. He said, no, come, I'm staying in Kota House. Come and have lunch with me. In fact, our first conversation was a bit of a rude behavior from my side, in the sense, inadvertently. When he called, his number didn't display, or I didn't know his number. It was unknown number. So I said, who's calling? So he said, Manohar. So I said, who Manohar? And he said, Parrikar. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So, that was the wrong, we started on the wrong foot. But eventually, within about a month and a half or so, we started exchanging phone calls. And he was a man of simple habits. When I asked him, who do I contact to come to Kota House when he first called me, he said, nobody. Take down my number, you just call me. And in any case, it's fixed. You come at 12:30 on Sunday. We'll have some fish curry and rice and
that was
chat.
a bonding, huh?
That was a bonding. Well, yeah, that Marathi, of course, was a common language. So it started there. Then the Aero India happened in Bangalore. So I went there and then he saw me. He said, come, I'm in such and such hotel. We'll have dinner together. That's how, again, second meeting happened. And then he wanted to constitute a committee to re-evaluate and review the defense acquisition procedure, as it is called now. It used to be called defense procurement procedure at that point in time. And he said, suggest to me some names who can be on the committee. So I gave him some 8-10 names. Out of that, he selected 4. And in the pre-selection meeting, he sort of, somebody asked him. Somebody couldn't, one veteran in the military couldn't stop himself and said, you seem to be knowing each other very well. You seem to trust him quite a lot. He said, no, I know him since only February 2015. This was 3 months after that meeting. So that's how it began. And why he trusted me, why he did that, he actually explained to that veteran. He said, look, I asked 8 to 10 people in Delhi, who should I get an unbiased view or a view outside the government on defense ministry and the armed forces. Out of those 8 or 10 people, at least 5 told me his name independently. So I thought, let me just check him out. And he said, I've done my due diligence and that's why I do that. And so then he started calling me at odd hours. He would call me at 6 in the morning, sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, on the phone first, and then said, why don't you drop in? I want to bounce some ideas off you, like that. He was a forced bachelor in the sense he had lost his wife earlier. So he had all the time. In fact, I used to feel a little pressured when he called me at odd hours that, why should I go to a minister now? What? But then he put me completely at ease, and that's how it began.
And I want to come to the most important part that I found.
Sure.
The one on making defense ministry transparent and proactive. And you say here, traditionally the MOD has been a slumberous, mammoth and slow-moving organization, happy to trudge along, least bothered about time-bound outcomes. So was that his concern also?
Very much so. In fact, the first meeting at Kota House, he asked me, apart from whatever points I gave him for OROP and otherwise, he says, tell me, why do people mistrust and distrust each other in the MOD? I found this very intriguing, he said, when I took over the ministry, and in these 4 months that I've been there, I find it to be very disconcerting. So I said, well, the Britishers wanted it that way. And the system has just been carried on. Nobody tried to change it. He says, no, that is what I want to change. And that's where I think his biggest contribution was to make defense ministry, and that's why the heading in the chapter, making it transparent, open, approachable, and accessible to Indian defense industry, to small MSME companies, and empowering the military to reach out to Indian solutions or Indian solution providers in the MSME sector or in the Indian defense sector of manufacturing, innovation, or even designing and development. And I think that was his passion. He says, and I think it came from a fact that he tried his hand at becoming a DRDO vendor and was an utter failure. So that's where it began, really.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned distrust within the MOD. Distrust of whom?
No, distrust in decision making. Like, so the armed forces would distrust the civilian bureaucracy. The civilian bureaucracy would have contempt for the armed forces. Then there was this constant looking over your shoulder kind of attitude of everyone in the defense ministry, that I can't be seen talking to an industrialist or a vendor or a defense company official. There would be the access to Sena Bhavan and South Block used to be so restricted and so constricted. It used to be a mammoth task. But he wanted it to be changed completely. He said, unless there is interaction, unless the user knows what is available and the manufacturer or the designer and developer knows what the user wants, how are we going to do it? So that's how he started changing the attitude.
Did he ever talk to you about all the scandals that we've seen in the defense ministry in all these years? The corruption, the commissions paid. Did he ever?
Oh yes. In fact, my biggest takeaway, and it remains my most memorable interaction with him, was on his flight from Goa, on his defense ministry or the defense minister's plane from Goa to Delhi, 2.5 hours. And that was when I was launching Bharat Shakti, our other portal. And I was pestering him for an interview to launch my portal with his interview. And he couldn't find time in Delhi. The kind of time I wanted. So he said, why don't you do one thing? You come to Goa, and on my return flight, I'll be completely undisturbed for 2.5 hours, no phone calls, nothing. We'll chat there. And I asked him several questions. They were all in the air. He was talking about it openly, about the policy changes he wanted to bring in, about the blacklisting of companies, which was indiscriminate and was not helping the Indian Armed Forces, about having authorized representatives of foreign companies in India instead of middlemen, about trying to change the defense procurement procedure, all that. For that 2.5 hours, we spoke, and I taped that interview, which is available publicly now, the transcript. He didn't refer to a single paper while telling me what he wanted to do in the defense ministry. That was a policy document in his head, and which is now getting translated over these next 4 or 5 years since then. This was in November 2015. We are in in April 2021. So that was this man's genius in a way. He clearly was somebody who was interested in his subject, passionate about it, and had a very sharp intellect and a mind which would grasp complicated things very quickly and then come down to a solution immediately.
So what would you describe as his 3 or 4 major achievements in the MOD?
Well, first is to bring in this transparency and this increased interaction, allowing it now to become official. So today you see all the industry associations have constant interaction. They have annual functions or annual events. He's taken these interactions down to smaller centers like Belgaum, Pune, Bangalore, Chennai, even Chandigarh and Lucknow, where vendors can interact with defense ministry officials. And he encouraged Army, Navy, Air Force officials to come up with problem statements, what they wanted for themselves from the Indian industry. Not the big ticket items alone, but that. So that was one thing. He changed the procurement procedure. He brought in, at the urging of some of us, I won't take credit alone, but some of the Indian industries and Indian MSMEs who wanted preference for Indian products. So against much opposition from the Dhirendra Singh committee members, some of the Dhirendra Singh committee members which were redrafting the Defence Procurement Procedure 2016, he introduced a category for procurement called IDDM, indigenously designed, developed and manufactured. He says anything that the armed forces want to buy must first try and discover the product in this category. If it is not available, then go to the next 3 categories. I think that is his lasting contribution, because that has spurred indigenization, it has spurred Make in India. It may not have got the kind of volumes and the kind of money generated so far, the wealth generated so far, but that was the beginning. So that was number 1. Number 2, his decision on OROP, or his involvement in the one rank, one pension calculation of for the soldiers. This demand has been pending since 1973, that every soldier retiring in the same rank, irrespective of the year that he retires, should get the similar pension. Well, that didn't fructify 100%, but he got that resolved by personally getting involved and making the calculations along with his officials. He had this capacity to sit for long hours with his officials. I've mentioned some of the things, not just me, but some officials have mentioned it. So that was his second lasting contribution, I would say. And the third was to persuade, and I've used this term, interchangeably. Some people said you're being polite. He forced the Air Force to take the LCA Tejas in large numbers. I would say he persuaded. He had persuasive power. So he sat through these meetings with Air Force officials, ADA, that is the Aeronautical Development Agency, and HAL, to sort out the problems that they had. They used to blame each other for Tejas not progressing at all, or Tejas not being the preferred buy. While the Air Force used to say it's a great aircraft, it's not yet a great fighter. That was a very favorite thing. He said, okay, if that is the case, buy it, get the first version of it, and then improve on it, work on it, whatever improvements are needed. I think that again has spurred, and now today everybody is talking about the order given to HAL, 83 and earlier 40, 20 plus 20, and now 83 aircraft being manufactured by HAL for the Indian Air Force, the Tejas light combat aircraft. It started before him a little bit, but he spurred it. He sort of forced the Air Force, if you want me to use that word, rather than persuade, he forced the Air Force to take the Tejas, saying that only that will eventually engender an ecosystem for the Indian defense and aerospace industry, which I think is now coming true.
I presume the second lot of orders for the Arjun tank emanated from the similar...
similar. So he had this thing, and I think, slowly that thought process creeped into other services also, that the minister wants it like this. The overall government policy was also of Make in India. Remember, Prime Minister Modi's Make in India policy was first announced at Aero India 2015, almost 7-8 months after this government came to power. And defense is the major part of Make in India in that sense. So he had this constant, I would say, interaction with the armed forces to say that if you can buy something from Indian companies, even if they are meeting the GSQRs, the General Staff Qualitative Requirements, only up to about 70 or 80%, buy it and then ask them to improve it, because after all you will have control over it. He was the one who said that we must manufacture ammunition in private sector too. The monopoly of the Ordnance Factory Board is not good for the country, because they are not able to meet the requirement. They are not bad, but they are not able to meet the requirement, the large requirement that the armed forces have. So he floated 8 tenders. It's another matter, they didn't go anywhere for private sector, and actually they had barred OFB from participating in those tenders for manufacture of ammunition by private sector. But now it has come. The private sector has entered into making ammunition for the Indian Armed Forces, which is a path-breaking policy once again. So it's an overall government thing, but he was catalyst in getting them speeded up, getting them to think and do what he thought was best for the country.
The Rafale deal,
yes,
highly controversial, and the decision to buy 36 aircraft. You broke the story first.
Yes.
Although your figure was much higher.
Yes, it was 63. It was 63. Again, so when it was presented to him, there's this case of Air Force was constantly telling him that we are depleting our combat fleet. We need them urgently. We need replacement urgently. We stated this requirement in 2000, and it was in 2015. 15 years later, there was not a single aircraft had been bought. So he studied the entire file, the process, which had started in 2007 under UPA 1. And then he realized it had come to a stage where the Dassault Aviation was not willing to take guarantee for HAL's manufacturing of 108 aircraft. And the cost was going up. It was becoming phenomenally expensive. So, and it had got muddled up with various issues. So then he went to, according to what he told me, I mean, people will have different versions, but he said that I took it to the Prime Minister and told him that this is the way we can do it. We have to buy it off the shelf. There's no other way, but I will guarantee you that I'll get you the best price and I'll get you the best technology. So for the first time, performance-based logistics was introduced, which is that 75% of the fleet would always be operational is what was introduced. 13 India-specific enhancements were put into that Rafale contract, where you have the Meteor and the Mica missiles been integrated, radar. But more than that, I think he, when it came to spending government money or exchequer money, he was very frugal. So in January 2016, when President of France, I forget who it was.
Hollande.
No, I think it was Mitterrand. Hollande. When he came, they were supposed to sign on 26 January 2016, they were supposed to sign an MOU finalizing the decision that had been taken in April 2015, the story that I broke, which you spoke about, and with the price. And the negotiations went on till 4 a.m. on 26th January 2016. Then the people came back to him, and for the first time, he had allowed a military officer in uniform to lead the negotiations. It was contrary to practice, which was normally done by civilian bureaucracy in the MOD. This was the then Deputy Chief of Air Staff, the current Air Chief, Air Marshal, now Air Chief Marshal RKS Bhaduria, who was leading the negotiation that time. They came back and said they're not coming down to the price that we want or what you had specified. He said, wait, I'll make sure that the price is not included in the MOU. So he went back to the Prime Minister and said, you sign everything else, but not the price. It took another 9 months for them to come down to that price of 7.89 billion euros for 36 Rafales. And it was signed in September 2016. So he said, I wanted, because he introduced also the clause for capping the inflation, the cost escalation at 3%. And that is the highest. But he said that European inflation has been less than 1% or around 1%. So you save a lot of money there. And several other things were introduced in that Rafale contract. So, I mean, a lot of people have not not very pleased that the credit should go to him. But having seen from close quarters what he did and what others have told me from the Air Force and all that, he was the major architect of this. Of course, the final political call was taken by the Prime Minister. And I don't know why the numbers changed, which I never could really get it from him. From 63, which originally I had heard, to 36. Maybe Rafale is very expensive in that sense. But it's a very potent and a combat-proven aircraft in that sense, or will be combat-worthy for India. And it has become a major source of India's strength during the standoff with China. A lot of people have made too much out of it. But eventually, the Rafales will make a difference. To the
so, not related to this.
Yes.
But what is the roadmap for the Rafale? Do you see some level of indigenous
I don't see. There is no talk about that. But there is this Air Force wants 110 more medium combat aircraft. Now, will the Rafale go get a second chance for this? Or will the Air Force opt out for a single engine aircraft? We still don't know. And it will depend on what budget is made available to them. But even these two squadrons will make a lot of difference because of the India-specific enhancements, the capability that Rafale has, and of course, government-to-government contract. They might push for it. The French will push for it. How it pans out, again, it's a geostrategic inputs will determine the decision, I guess.
Because one would presume that the Air Force has enough diversity in equipment, you know.
They have the Russian Sukhoi 30s,
and all kinds
the British, then they have the Mirage 2000s, which are still going strong since 85. So we don't know where it will go. It needed to be done that time. I wish they had bought 4 squadrons instead of 2, but the way government works, one doesn't know why this happens.
Now, let's get away from all this, get into Manohar Parrikar as a member of the RSS.
Yes.
Now, I found it a little difficult to reconcile my image of Manohar Parrikar, rice and fish, he enjoyed his beer, The RSS has a slightly different sort. How do you square that?
Well, exactly. So I think he continued to be what he was. He didn't sort of fit into the typical RSS. He made this very clear to me at one of those discussions over beer again. And very much in this place where we are sitting, he used to come. He said, I was not a pracharak. I was not a full-time life member of the RSS. I was a swayamsevak, a volunteer.
Okay.
He said that is the difference. A pracharak is expected to behave the way we know, certain ways that they don't eat meat, they don't, many of them don't marry, all that. So he said that is the difference many of you don't understand. That I was not a pracharak, I was a swayamsevak. And therefore I was free to do what I wanted. So in his younger days, he loved he loved smoking. He had a very maverick kind of an approach. Even during his student days, a lot of his friends from IIT Mumbai or Bombay keep talking about the way he broke a union strike there in the mess. So I think although he sort of was groomed by the RSS, he fully was committed to the RSS. He didn't fit into their kind of image that you spoke about. And I think the RSS also has many of these people which don't come out openly, because he became the chief minister. In fact, Destiny has different plans. He was supposed to be not the state representative of the BJP when the RSS decided to back BJP politically in Goa, which didn't exist till 1991 or 1994. He was supposed to be their MP candidate in Delhi, or an MP from Goa, because he could speak English, he had a sharper mind, he was better educated than most people. Yet Destiny had in store for him that he became chief minister, and only chief minister. He never sort of graduated from being a minister to a chief minister. He directly became a chief minister. So I think there are so many stories of his in Goa. If you go, everybody used to know him as Bhai and used to love him. Not the Bhai of the Dawood Ibrahim kind, but like that. So I actually, that 2.5 years that he spent in Delhi, found him to be a completely different man than many of the RSS volunteers or even pracharaks are. He had a beautiful handwriting, very sharp mind, quick reader, read books. He gave me, when he left Delhi, he said, all my books are now lying in the Goa Sadan. And I'm not going to carry all of them back. So just go and select what you want and keep. So I have some 65 books picked from there. So he became a friend rather than a kind of acquaintance, professional acquaintance. And that's why this book. So in a way, that's a tribute I have paid to him for the wonderful insights he gave me into functioning at the highest level.
So last question. What is his legacy, do you say? What impact has he left on Indian polity, on the decision making within the MOD?
I think the MOD has changed forever. That's the lasting legacy. The old days of suspicion, of opaque decision making, of not or sitting of the ways of sitting on files and delaying things. These do happen even now. I mean, you can't change it overnight. But certainly there is much more openness, transparency, interaction. And the armed forces are also now not afraid of interacting with what they call defense agents and vendors. They are in fact going out of their way. The creation of in the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, directorates of innovation, or what is in Army called the Army Design Bureau, where they upfront state problems and tell the vendors that, look, we have these problems, please provide solutions. We will take it from you immediately. So that, I think, is his lasting legacy. I don't think he was fully satisfied with what he achieved in those months. And that question mark always hangs in my mind. Why did he go back to Goa? Political compulsions obviously overcame the need for a continuity in the defense ministry. He was proving to be a good defense minister. Was he sort of
too competent?
Missing? No. Was he missing Goa, which he constantly kept talking about? Was he also worried about his boys, or at least his younger son? or it was a combination of political compulsion, his discomfort in Delhi. He never liked Delhi. He made it very clear for whatever reason. Therefore, what we saw. But of course, he went very early at the age of 64, too early, succumbed to cancer. But he kept working till the end. And I think, therefore, I wanted to bring out that personality of his, that with sheer dint of hard work, coming from a village in Goa, he became Defense Minister of India. He could have done more, certainly, but whatever he did is also not insubstantial.
Great. So, all of you out there, check it out. Manohar Parrikar, Brilliant Mind, Simple Life, Nitin Gokhale's latest. And Nitin, thanks very much. Good chat on this man.
Thank you.
I do recall the first day he came to,
MOD.
The MOD. But there was such a press over there. There was no question of even going close to him.
Yes.
So anyway, great. You've given me insight into how he thinks and how he did. Thanks very much. Catch us again on Instagram, on Twitter, and every other social media you can find. And look forward to seeing you again.